Learn the basics with Jayda InStitches!
All right, mini tutorial today, and it is on half double crochet. This is an oddball stitch, but it's really, really handy. It's like a nice filler stitch, kind of like a single crochet, makes nice tight fabric. Half double crochet does sort of the same thing, but makes it faster because a half double crochet is just a half bigger than a single crochet. It's almost double the height, but not quite. That's why they call it a half double crochet. Actually, it's half a double crochet, but it's not really half a double crochet, but we'll get into that later. I'm really rambling. So today's little tutorial, little mini tutorial, is on half double crochet, and let's just get into it. For the half double crochet stitch tutorial, I'm just using a regular old worsted weight yarn and a 4.5 millimeter, 4.5 millimeter hook. So, half double crochet. We're going to start with a slip knot, and if you're unsure of the slip knot, refer to the slip knot tutorial. We're also going to chain, because we're going to go back and forth, and if you're unsure of chaining, you can refer to the chaining tutorial, and I'll put both those links down below. So to start, we're going to chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there is a foundation chain of 10. In order to start working backwards and going back along our row, we need a turning chain, and I explained this in the single crochet tutorial, and you might want to refer to that tutorial if you're a real beginner and you haven't looked at it yet, because a turning chain is what allows you to keep your work flat, straight up and down on both sides. So a half double crochet, because it's just a little bit bigger than a single crochet, requires 2 turning chains, not just 1. So we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and these 2 chains are actually going to be the first half double crochet of this row. Now, not every pattern asks you to include the turning chains as a half double crochet. Sometimes they ask you to ignore them, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to get you to treat them as a half double crochet, because you will run into that when you're doing patterns down the road. Now, in order to treat this as a half double crochet stitch, you are not going to work your first half double crochet into the 3rd chain from the hook, because that is technically going to be the bottom of your 2 chain half double crochet stitch. And I know that seems a bit funny now, but it'll make more sense a few rows in. So instead, we're going to actually identify the 4th chain from the hook. So go 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's into this 4th chain that we're going to work our first half double crochet stitch. A half double crochet stitch starts by wrapping the yarn around your needle. So you can wrap that yarn around your needle any way that you feel comfortable. You want the yarn wrapped around your needle to begin with, so it looks like you have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to take your hook and stick it through that 4th chain. So now you have 1, 2, 3 loops sitting on your hook. You're going to wrap that yarn around your hook again, any way you like that you can grab it, because you're going to pull it through that 1st chain. There you go, that working chain, so that you have 3 true loops on your hook. All right, looks a bit like this. You're going to wrap your yarn around your hook one more time, and you're going to pull it through all 3 loops on your hook. That is a half double crochet stitch. Again, we're going to work into the next chain on our foundation row. You're going to wrap your yarn around your hook. You're going to insert your hook through that next working stitch. In this case, it's a chain. So you've got 1, 2, 3 loops on your hook, and this 3rd loop is technically the chain that you're working into. You're going to wrap your yarn around your hook, pull up a loop through that chain. So now you've attached your stitch to your foundation chain row. You've got 1, 2, 3 true loops on your hook. You're going to wrap your yarn around your hook, pull it back through all three. And that's 2 half double crochet stitches created. And you'll see that the 2 turning chains on the end are the same height as your other 2 half double crochet stitches. So here we go again. You're going to identify the next chain that you're working into. It's this one here. You're going to wrap your yarn around your hook. You're going to put your hook through that chain. So you've got loop 1, loop 2, and the working chain on your hook. Wrap your yarn, pull up a loop into that working chain so you've attached your stitch to your foundation row. You have 1, 2, 3 true loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn around your hook, pull it through all 3. Now you can see that the half double crochet is definitely a half bigger than the single crochet stitch. That's why I particularly love working half double crochet when I'm making pieces of fabric. Like for example, if I'm making a pair of leg warmers, it's a lot more fun to use a half double crochet stitch than just a single crochet, because you get the thickness of a fabric, so you don't get a lot of airy holes with a half double crochet stitch like you don't when you use single crochet, but you also knit it up faster than you would if you were just using single crochet. So here we go. We're going to identify the next chain, wrap our yarn, hook goes through the working chain. We've got 2 loops plus the working chain on our hook. Wrap your yarn around your hook, pull up a loop so that you've affixed what's going to be the actual stitch to your foundation row. 1, 2, 3 true loops. Wrap your yarn around your hook, pull it back through all 3 loops. Again, wrap, go through the stitch, bring up a loop, so you have 1, 2, 3 loops, wrap, pull back through all 3. Wrap, through the stitch, pull up a loop, 1, 2, 3, wrap, back through all 3. Wrap your yarn, insert your hook through your stitch, pull up a loop, 1, 2, 3, wrap, go through all 3. Wrap, through the stitch, pull up a loop, 1, 2, 3, wrap, go through all 3. Wrap, through the stitch, pull up a loop, 1, 2, 3, wrap, go through all 3. We've now gotten to the end of our foundation row. So this is where I can a little better demonstrate what the turning chains look like. So because we want to turn around and go backwards, we have to give ourselves the turning chains required in order to keep it at the right height and to keep our work flat on both sides. It's 2 chains for a half double crochet, unless otherwise stated. You may run into patterns down the road that say only 1 because they're going for a different shape. But for our purposes, we're going to use 2. Flip your work, because now we're going to work back the other way. If you look closely at your work, you'll see you've got your 2 chains, and then there's the top of the first stitch. Well, that's technically the 3rd chain, and that base, that 3rd chain, or that top of that first stitch, is the base for what we consider the first half double crochet of this row, even though it's just 2 chains. We're treating these 2 chains like a half double crochet stitch. So we're going to skip that first stitch. We're going to go 1, 2, 3. Those 3 chains, or what look like 3 chains, belong to the first half double crochet. We're going to identify the next stitch. So there's stitch 1. That's going to be the base for this guy. Here's stitch 2. That's where we're going to put our first true half double crochet. We're going to wrap our yarn. We're going to go through that whole stitch. So now it looks like you've got an actual chain running across the top of your hook. That's because you're working into the whole stitch. You're going to wrap your yarn and pull up a loop. So you have, just like before, 1, 2, 3 true loops on your hook. wrap your yarn, pull through all 3. Now we're going to do it again. Wrap your yarn. This is the next one we're working into. So you put your hook through there, grab the yarn and pull up a loop through that stitch. So you have 1, 2, 3 true loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn and pull it back through all 3 loops. All right, we're getting to the end. This is where it's going to look a little funny. You can see that there's one more true looking stitch left to work into. So I'm going to put a half double crochet in there. Now, the turning chain, and then you can see that that's the turning chain from the first row. That's where we started. This counts as a stitch, so you need to work into the top of this stitch. And you can see that there's a chain looking thing. It's not as neat and tidy as these other stitches, but it's still a chain. You're going to work a half double crochet into that chain. You just stick your hook in there anywhere it'll fit. Pull up a loop and make your stitch. Now, this, working that chain, that little turning chain, is what's going to keep your work running flat all the way up. This one bends in a little bit right now, but it'll straighten up when we work our last half double crochet into that chain. So let's chain 2 to begin our next row, turn our work, skip the first stitch, and work into the next one. And you want to do this all the way back. So I'm going to put a half double crochet into that last true stitch. It's easier to recognize. And this is the turning chain from the previous row. It's a little tight at the top, but that's okay. You can still see that there's a little chain there. You're going to fight to put your hook in anywhere it'll fit. And don't worry if it's tight, that's okay. You're going to put in another stitch, and there you go. Now, this little gappy bit does show up when you treat the half double crochet or the turning chain as a half double crochet. It's okay. Once you get more comfortable and you're a little more relaxed when you're crocheting, those little holes will sort of disappear. This is also the reason that sometimes people don't treat the 2 turning chains as a half double crochet stitch and put in a half double crochet stitch in addition to those 2 chains, and then you have to ignore the 2 chains. But because we're just teaching you the actual half double crochet stitch today, we're not going to worry about aesthetics. So I've chained 2, I've turned my work, I'm going to skip the first stitch, I'm going to work into the next stitch, wrap through the stitch, pull up a loop, 1, 2, 3, wrap, pull through all 3. And that is a half double crochet stitch. And that's a half double crochet stitch. Now, if you want to make a whole bunch of dishcloths, kind of like we did with the single crochet stitch tutorial, you can use the same pattern, but make it a little, make it about 20 long, but use those 20. Don't add extra 2 as turning chains on your foundation row. Just make it 20 long, and then half double crochet back and forth, and you can make a dishcloth a bit quicker than you would if you were going to make it with a single crochet. I dare you to try it, and I would like to know how it works out. Let me know in the comments down below. But anyway, that's a half double crochet stitch. Stay tuned because soon we're going to be doing some other stuff, and thank you guys for tuning in. As always, please like and subscribe and share it with your crafty friends, and we will see you again really, really soon. Bye!